What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday, and today we are going to be talking about the recent third-party reveals. We're going to go through just the ones that I'm interested in, or the ones that were new to me, or the ones that I think I have something to offer. Obviously, a whole ton gets shown there, and only some of it do I really have an opinion on. You know, it's just getting to be so much stuff out there, and so much of it is so far from what I actually have any interest in. So it would just be me wasting your time talking about it. That being said, all the Megatron canvases are on their way to you. Check your tracking through PayPal. I may have a couple left. I'm going to give it a couple weeks to make sure everybody gets theirs safely. But I think I have 3 left. So if you want to get put on a waiting list, contact me right now at bobbyskullface@gmail.com and I will add you to the waiting list. Once they're gone, they're gone. Other than that, no real housekeeping. I do want to say, as far as this panel is concerned, it's probably the most boring panel that I've seen. Maybe second most boring. There was one a couple years back that was really like nothing to it. It just didn't do a whole lot for me. The 3 companies that I'm most interested in, with the exception of Make Toys, because I'm waiting for them. As soon as they come back, they'll be the 4th company. X-Transbots, MMC, and Fans Toys. They just really didn't have a whole lot to show. We'll obviously talk about what they did show, but overall it was just a pretty lackluster performance across the board, which may be indicative of something, you know? That may be another conversation. Also, at the end of this video, I'm going to talk to you briefly about a conversation I'll be having next week. God willing, everything goes right. So let's not waste a whole lot more time, shall we? As a heads up, there's a conversation going up on Patreon today with me and another gentleman where we have like probably a 2-hour conversation about the events surrounding this panel. If you're interested, check out Patreon. We'll be going way more in depth into these designs on a level that I can't do by myself. So shout out to Shop Talk. Other than that, let's get started. So we'll get started with Mad Hand, and they're doing some sort of collaboration with another company, Nakomaki. I'm not 100% sure on that, but can we just take a second and acknowledge that if I ever started a third-party company, it probably should have been called Mad Hand, or maybe Bad Hand. All right, enough. I oughta. Anyway, they're doing a model Grimlock in a very stylized fashion. It looks pretty sophisticated. I'm not sure if I think that they nailed the head sculpt. Obviously, it's their take on the character, and I get that, but I do think that there's something about staying true to the character. It's like you can make it your own, but you got to stay in the ballpark. I often think about like the Arkham City designs from the Batman games. Like they were all new takes on the Batman villains, but they were easily recognizable as to who they were supposed to be. I feel like there's something a little off about this head sculpt, and I think it comes down to the eyes. I think Grimlock needs a visor. Other than that, I think it looks great. Another new company, Metagate, very meta indeed. They're working on a triple changer of the Bayverse Drift, which I think looks decent enough. I'm not crazy about these designs in general, as I'm sure most of you know by now, but I think for what it is, they did a decent enough job, and it looks clean in all 3 modes. I think the helicopter is the one that makes the most sacrifices, but I am shocked at how kind of put together the robot and car look. I'm absolutely 100% sure this toy will be a nightmare to transform. I'm also absolutely 100% sure that I will probably break it. Just playing the odds, ladies and gents. Moving on, they are also doing some sort of bird creature that I'm sure is from Beast Wars, and I've seen the show, but I don't remember the character. But I'm sure it looks as good or bad as it's supposed to. Speaking of things I don't know a whole lot about, Transform and Roll Out return, this time getting far away from G1, which I think is today's way in third party of just running to safety with this Optimus Prime that I suppose looks well enough. Looks big and bulky and all that kind of stuff, so that's cool. I did want to take a second and talk about this X-Transbots long haul. I love it. I love it. I think it's obviously very, very tuned, but things about like the knees, things about the hips, etc., I think give it at least a little bit of an interesting flair. I think they were able to take his design, which I think is overall a pretty goofy design, and turn it into something that doesn't look as goofy. And for that, I want to commend them. The alt modes look good. No complaints or criticisms there. And the combine mode seems to be sizing up all right. I'm probably going to pick this set up for a set of bots. Other than that, I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. It looks pretty good, though. X-Transbots also showed some stuff on the floor, like their Runabout and Runamuck and their Galvatron and a couple other pieces. They look to be very, very, very early in development, but I am watching it very closely. Magic Square showed off a couple things. I don't follow their stuff all that closely. I mean, I review it. I just don't follow the news regarding it all that closely. I'm not sure if they've shown these designs before. And of course, what I mean mean by designs is the new decos or whatever that they're doing for a couple of their original releases that maybe don't quite fit in with the same quality that they're pumping out now, and I do commend them for that approach. They showed a Huffer and a Jazz staying in that safe, very safe G1 Season 1 pocket. It's always more interesting to me when they get away from that stuff, just to see how successful it can be. I use it more as a gauge to see what's really successful in the Masterpiece pocket, but two designs that are probably going to be fairly successful. And then they showed off their Skyfire, not to be outdone by New Age. You know, these companies just can't keep from stepping on each other. They're the X-Transbots and Fans Toys of the Legends game. And I think it looks pretty good. You know, prototype, obviously, and the cockpit seems to be made out of wood, I believe, but I'm not entirely sure about that. I'm kidding, of course, before you start typing in the comments section. Jesus Christos. But I think it looks pretty good. I think it looks promising. I don't think the alt mode looks all that great, but it might be one of those things where it looks a ton better with color. But it looks really kind of broken up, and it doesn't really look, I don't know, wide enough and sleek enough. That alt mode always like reminded me of something that was both like kind of like a tank, but also pretty sleek. And I don't know if it hit the mark there, to be honest. I also don't know if it's easy for me to speak. So two things can be true. Iron Factory showed off their Samurai line with their Ironhide, and I think he looks great given the motif and such. I also think it looks really cool to have that weapon set. It kind of reminds me of the G1 toy, where like the G1 toy kind of had that little trailer that like also could store the weapons and stuff. And that's kind of been a motif that carried on even with the Takara Masterpiece. And now it kind of carries on with this too. Like I kind of like the tradition of it. You know, I'm a guy that respects tradition. And I think the alt mode looks pretty funny, but also pretty interesting. And like it could fit within the time, right? Like it looks like if you were to have a van during the ancient samurai times, what would it look like? Probably like this. I dig that. And then we had Fans Toys. Their weirdest looking dead end yet. It looks like it's made out of 5 planes, which is really getting away from the character in my opinion. But obviously this is their Superion. They seem to be trying to move ahead with it, which I am very much appreciating to see. Hopefully they can start releasing some of it. I still am very, very skeptical about it. But they showed the 2 different looks, you know, the faceplate, the non-faceplate, different guns, etc. I guess as their take on Toon versus Toy. And they also showed how the parts are going to form up to make flight stands for the jets, which I think is an interesting enough way to approach it, right? You're going to have all these extra parts. Might as well be able to do something with it as long as that something doesn't aesthetically jeopardize its main function, which it doesn't seem to. But we'll see how it affects stability. Only time will tell on that. Yesterday, at least as we were recording this, people were speculating as to whether or not finding some sort of tool for the skeleton pieces is what's delaying them. I would say that's probably not the case. I would say what's delaying them is making it work. After they make it work, the question would be, what else can they do with it? That would be my guess. And I think that that's a decent enough thing that they came up with here. I think that that's pretty smart. Moving on, I think they're actually their piece that sort of rocked the world, so to speak, is this Magnus. And I think it looks fine. You know, I think that proportionately it looks better than the X-Transbots. Once again, the thing that kind of concerns me about this is the armor element of it. Now, I know a lot of people have been looking forward to something that kind of makes the armor, and I do find it curious that they went this route. I don't hate it. I'm not mad at it, but I do find it curious, and I find it interesting. And the fact that Prime is in there probably does suggest that a Prime is coming. What else could it suggest, really, at the end of the day? And that's exciting. It would be interesting to see Fans Toys tackle the linchpin character. It does have an alt mode. Once again, I'm curious as to how the alt mode will stand up under the parts forming element, where it's just like theoretically a ton of pieces coming together to make it happen. Pretty skeptical about that as well, but interested nonetheless. And only 2 offerings. Really, really, really a bummer. Fans Hobby was there, showed a ton of stuff. I don't know anything about it, so I'm not going to really talk about it. I'm all sure that it's probably made to the same caliber as the rest of their stuff, which is to say fairly well, but you kind of know what you're getting. I don't even know who these characters are, so it would be silly for me to talk too much about it. And MMC was there showing Streetwise, their next Protectobot, which I'm pretty excited about and I think looks fantastic. Of course, it's part of the all-in-one, and I think the alt mode element of it looks pretty much perfect, and I'm curious to see how they pull off the combine mode of it, but so far I'm not hating what I'm seeing. I know the scale won't be for me and such, it won't quite work for me, but that doesn't mean I can't appreciate it. I hope that they've learned from the Bruticus and that it kind of solves some of the stabilization issues. And then they showed their tapes, and Steeljaw should be here to me shortly, and I think that they look bloody amazing, as I've always thought, and cannot wait to get a hold of them, and I'm anxiously looking forward to them. One of the most exciting kind of releases, in my opinion, in some time, and I am counting down the days. They can't get here fast enough. Hopefully by the holidays is my hope, but who knows. But I think they look great. So there you have it. I gotta check on my buddy Joe and see if he's excited about that Magnus. He's been waiting for like a power armor Magnus figure, so maybe this will do it for him. We'll have to wait and see. Other than that, my Halloween party is tonight. I should be posting up pictures of our Halloween costumes on social media either tonight or tomorrow. I will be at Baltimore Comic-Con tomorrow afternoon briefly, as long as I'm not super hungover. And next week, we're going to be having a conversation about Hasbro's business practices. There's a lot of kind of nitty-gritty stuff to get in there, and we're gonna dive in. We're gonna jump in with both feet. So it's going to be a little bit more technical, but it should be pretty interesting. All right, that's it for now. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Till next time, take care.